Okay, let's dive in. Today, we're tackling something uh, really core for coaching elite sprinters. That balance, How do you juggle the sheer power for the start, that explosive speed for max velocity, and the endurance needed, especially for the 400? It's a constant challenge for coaches working with 100 and 400-meter athletes.
Absolutely. And traditionally, the approach has often been, well, quite siloed, hasn't it? Strength days here, speed days there, endurance work somewhere else, building each quality sort of separately.
Right. But then you think, is that really the optimal way? What if we stop seeing them as these separate buckets and start thinking about how they integrate, how they influence each other? Could bringing them together strategically unlock more potential? That's the big question for our deep dive today.
Yeah, and we're grounding this conversation in a recent study that looked at exactly that. A comprehensive, integrated training model designed specifically to boost sprint performance in both the 100 and the 400.
So, our mission here is to really unpack this study. We want to pull out the key findings, the insights, the practical bits from their discussion, and, translate it all into takeaways for you, the advanced coach, looking to optimize how you train your athletes. Let's get into what they found.
Well, first, to really get why an integrated approach might work, it helps to just quickly revisit the demands of these two races. They overlap, but they're distinct too. The 100 meters, that's just extreme power and velocity, isn't it?
Sheer explosion.
Exactly. Getting max force into the ground super fast, accelerating hard, hitting top speed quickly.
Every split second counts in those first, 30, 40 meters?
Totally. But the 400 meters, well, that adds this big anaerobic endurance piece. You still need that speed and power up front, but the game changer is maintaining a really high percentage of that speed for, a long time while fighting off lactate and fatigue. It's a different beast metabolically.
So, related events, but needing slightly different physiological focuses. And the study's idea is that integrating the training targets the foundations for both, but addresses the specific needs through smart programming.
That's the idea. I mean, think about the components. Strength training builds your base force production. How hard can you push? This directly impacts things like stride length.
Makes sense. More force, potentially longer, more powerful strides.
Then speed training drills, technique work, short bursts that refines the neuromuscular side. How efficiently your brain and muscles fire together, that helps with stride frequency.
Getting the legs turning over quicker.
And finally, endurance work crucial for the 400, but still relevant for the 100's later stages that tackles fatigue resistance, metabolic efficiency, handling the byproducts of going all out.
Okay, so instead of training force here, leg speed there, and fatigue resistance over there, this integrated model tries to blend them to optimize acceleration, max speed, and holding that speed, making a more, complete sprinter.
That's the theory they tested. And the study itself, well, provides some pretty compelling evidence. It was a 12-week quasi-experimental design, basically a pre-test, post-test setup.
Okay.
They had 30 trained male sprinters, 18 to 25 years old, split into two groups.
One group got the integrated program, the experimental one, and the other, a control group doing more, let's say, conventional sprint training, like moderate strength, general endurance.
Exactly. The experimental group had this specific structured 12-week plan, training 5 days a week. And it wasn't just random, it was periodized. 3 phases,
Right.
starting with strength development, then moving focus to speed development, and finishing with more endurance maintenance. The control group trained too, but just less integrated.
Got it. A direct head-to-head over a decent training block. So what happened? What did they actually find when they compared the two?
Okay, this is where it gets really interesting for coaches looking for that edge. The experimental group, the integrated one, showed significantly bigger improvements across, well, pretty much everything they measured compared to the controls.
Let's start with the stopwatch, the times.
Right, the bottom line. In the 100 meters, the integrated group dropped their time by an average of 0.35 seconds. Now, for trained guys, that is huge over just 12 weeks.
Wow.
That's a 3.2% improvement on average. The control group, they improved too, but only by 0.14 seconds or 1.3%.
0.35 seconds. That's massive at competitive levels. And the study mentioned a large effect size, right? D1.13. For coaches maybe less into stats, what does that large effect size really signal?
It basically shows you the difference wasn't just a statistical fluke. It was a meaningful, substantial improvement in real-world terms. The size of the effect, the practical difference between the groups was large.
Okay. What about the 400?
Even bigger impact there. The experimental group cut their 400 time by an average of 1.73 seconds. That's a 3.5% drop. The control group, only 0.56 seconds, or 1.1%. And again, large effect size, DO 1.21. This integrated training really moved the needle for the quarter milers.
Incredible. So it worked really well for both pure speed and speed endurance. Did they mention anything about individual variation? Because athletes don't all respond the same, do they?
No, they don't. And the study did point that out there was significant variability. But, and this is key, 80% of the athletes in that integrated group improved their 100-meter time by at least 2.5%. Some saw improvements over 4%. So even with variation, the potential for big gains was clearly there.
Okay, so beyond the times, what about the physical stuff? The strength gains?
Yeah, huge differences here too. The integrated group got significantly stronger, relatively speaking. Their squat 1RM went up 11.4% versus 5.4% for the control. Deadlift, 10.5% versus 4.4%. And power clean, really impressive, 12.2% versus 6.1%.
Wait, nearly double the strength gains in some lifts while also getting much faster? That kind of suggests the heavy lifting wasn't hindered by the other training. It maybe even benefited from the integrated structure.
It certainly looks that way. It really underlines that if you integrate high-load strength work properly, it's a massive driver for sprint-specific power.
What about how they actually ran? The mechanics, the kinematics?
They measured that too. And again, the integrated group showed superior improvements. Stride length went up 4.2% versus 1.4% in the control. Stride frequency improved by 3.9% versus just 1.0%. And crucially, ground contact time decreased by 5.4% versus 2.2%.
Longer strides, faster turnover, less time on the ground. I mean, that's basically the recipe for a more efficient, faster sprinter right there.
Precisely. Those kinematic changes show better neuromuscular coordination,
Wow.
better force application. It translates directly to speed.
And for the 400, how did they measure that improved fatigue resistance you mentioned?
They looked at blood lactate levels after the 400-meter effort. The integrated group showed a significant reduction in lactate accumulation. It was 9.6% lower post-training compared to pre-training. The control group only saw a 3.2% reduction.
So their bodies got better at handling that intense effort, either producing less lactate or clearing it out more effectively.
Exactly. That points directly to better anaerobic endurance, better fatigue resistance, which you absolutely need to hang on in the last stretch of 400. It's a clear physiological underpinning for the performance gains.
And the study even visualized some connections, right? Linking specific lift improvements to sprint phases.
Yeah, figure 1 in the paper does a nice job. It shows, for instance, that gains in explosive lifts like the power clean and deadlift correlated strongly with the 100-meter improvements reflecting that power for acceleration. For the 400 meters, while strength like the squat was still important, the biggest correlate was that reduction in lactate. It directly links that improved fatigue resistance to running a faster 400.
Okay, the data is really strong. Integrated training works better times, stronger athletes, better mechanics, less fatigue. So the million-dollar question for coaches listening, how do you take this and actually use it? How do you implement this stuff?
Right, and this is where the discussion part of the study is so valuable. It really hammers home that getting these kinds of results needs a comprehensive program. You have to develop multiple qualities at once: acceleration, max velocity, fatigue resistance, and, importantly, they suggest this holistic approach might even help reduce injury risk and promote longevity. You're building a more robust athlete, not just strong in one area.
That injury point alone is huge for coaches, keeping athletes on the track season after season. So how do we actually do it? The how.
Okay, number 1, the study stresses you absolutely need structured periodization. You can't just mush everything together randomly. It needs a plan. A model to balance the load, manage recovery, avoid overtraining, and actually let the body adapt to all these different signals. The study's own 3-phase approach is a good example.
So it's not just do everything all the time, it's about phasing, emphasizing different things at different times, but within that integrated framework.
Exactly. And within that structure, you need to balance the actual training components. That means high-load strength training. The study suggests working at or above 80% of 1RM is key for driving those force production gains needed for acceleration and top speed.
Heavy lifting is a must, mixed in with the running.
Yes. Then you need dedicated speed training, your drills for technique, maybe resisted sprints for specific power, and high-intensity intervals focused around sprint distances. That hits stride mechanics, frequency, neuromuscular stuff.
And the endurance part.
Yep, you need endurance-focused components. Things like tempo runs or fartlek can build that base capacity. And crucially, especially for the 400 guys, speed endurance work. So structured reps at high speed, controlled recovery, training the body to resist fatigue at near-max efforts.
Okay, now, one thing coaches often worry about with combining strength and endurance is interference, right? Training one might hurt gains in the other. Did the study touch on that?
It did. It acknowledges that concern. It's a known thing in sports science. But the big insight from this study, given its success, is that while interference can happen, you can minimize it, maybe even override it, with smart sequencing, scheduling, and really careful load management.
Ah, okay.
They reference older studies, people like Cahill or Cantrell, showing how structuring things like maybe doing strength earlier in the day, sprints later, or just managing total volume and intensity carefully through the week lets you adapt to multiple things at once. The integrated approach worked here, suggesting it can be done synergistically if the program's intelligent.
So integrating smartly is the key,
Ah.
using periodization and scheduling to manage those potential conflicts.
Precisely. And probably the most critical practical point, something they really emphasize in the discussion, is the need for individualization. We saw that variability in results for a reason. Programs need to be tailored. Every athlete is different.
Okay, that's huge. What specific things did the study suggest coaches should look at when individualizing?
They list quite a few. Obvious physiological ones. Muscle fiber mixed mothers, and some guys respond better to strength, others to endurance. Neuromuscular efficiency, how well they recruit muscles. Metabolic capacity, how they handle lactate, use fuel. But they also specifically mentioned genetic factors.
Genetics, like beyond just raw talent.
Yeah, things like your inherent muscle fiber type ratio, how your hormones respond to training, stress, even your natural ability to recover. These genetic predispositions can really influence how someone adapts to an integrated plan.
Wow. So it's not just about who's fast, but how they respond to different types of training stimulus based partly on genetics?
Exactly. Understanding that, or at least accounting for it, matters. And don't forget the psychological side. Motivation, resilience, how well an athlete manages their own recovery and listens to their body. These non-physical things massively impact how they'll handle a tough, integrated program.
That really paints a picture of needing a very personalized, data-driven approach, not just a template.
Absolutely. And that's where technology is becoming, well, a really powerful ally for coaches trying to implement this complex, individualized training.
How can tech help apply these integrated principles?
Well, the study mentions this. Emerging tech lets coaches track how athletes are adapting almost in real time. Think wearable sensors, monitoring recovery, training stress, maybe even running technique during workouts.
Right.
Combine that data with some smart analysis, maybe machine learning, and you get immediate feedback. Is this athlete recovering well? Are they adapting? Are they close to overreaching? This lets you make those daily or weekly tweaks to their integrated plan.
So you're not just blindly following the plan, you're constantly adjusting it based on the athlete's actual current state.
Exactly. And things like velocity-based training, VBT, for the strength work. Using sensors to measure lift speed lets you adjust the weight based on their readiness that day. Are they moving the bar fast? Maybe add a bit more weight. Moving slow? Back off. It helps dial in the right strength stimulus within a week that also has intense running.
Using data to guide intensity and timing, all within that periodized structure.
Precisely. Tech enables a level of precision and real-time adjustment that makes truly individualized integrated training much more practical and effective.
Okay, so powerful results, practical ways to implement it, aided by tech. But like you said, no study is perfect. What limitations did they mention coaches should be aware of?
Yeah, a few important points. First, that individual variability we talk about. The study didn't fully delve into predicting who responds best or how to tailor the program up front based on those factors.
And it was only 12 weeks, right? Relatively short term.
Right. Shows great short-term gains, but doesn't tell us about long-term effects, sustained performance, potential burnout over seasons, or even the long-term injury impact. They suggested lower injury risk, but didn't actually measure it.
And the group studied.
It was 30 trained male sprinters, 18-25. So you have to be careful generalizing directly to, say, female athletes, younger kids, older masters athletes, or people at very different levels. Hormonal difference, development stages, they all affect training response.
All good context for applying this in the real world. Where did they suggest research should go next?
Well, longer-term studies, definitely. Confirming results over time, actually tracking injury rates. Also, digging deeper into the optimal sequencing and periodization within integrated models, like what's the absolute best way to combine sessions.
Getting even more specific on the how.
Exactly. More on individualization, understanding the genetic and psychological factors better. And, like we discussed, more research on integrating technology for even better programming and real-time monitoring. Comparing different specific methods, like different types of resisted sprints or VBT protocols, could also refine things.
All right, this has been a fantastic deep dive. Lots of practical stuff there.
Yeah, the main takeaway from this study is pretty clear, I think. Integrating strength, speed, and endurance training systematically leads to significantly better sprint performance in both the 100 and 400 compared to keeping them separate.
It's really about building that complete athlete, powerful, fast, and able to resist fatigue.
And the study suggests the way to do that is through a scientifically grounded, carefully periodized, and crucially, individualized approach, balancing the components, managing interference smartly, and using data to tailor it all.
It feels like more than just a new method, maybe a shift in thinking about how we structure training for the best results and athlete well-being.
By putting these pieces together in a smart athlete-focused way, coaches have a strong evidence-based strategy to build faster, more efficient, and maybe even more durable sprinters.
So let's leave you, the coach, with a final thought to chew on. Given that significant individual variability the study highlighted and the growing power of technology to give us real-time personalized data, how can you best blend this proven integrated training model with continuous data-driven assessment to truly unlock the unique potential hidden inside every single athlete you work with?